Dead Cells is a roguelite Metroidvania. The player plays as a cluster of cells that can control the dead. This mechanic doesn't play any major part in the gameplay, but it has some significance in the way that the story plays out, as it explains how the player is able to keep coming back to try again after falling in the dungeon. The part of Dead Cells that shines the most is the combat, which is great because that's what the majority of the game is about. You can have two weapons equipped at any time, one of the attack buttons controlling one, and another controlling the other. If you press an attack button multiple times in quick succession, the character will do a combo with that weapon. In addition to melee weapons, there are ranged weapons of various types, such as bows, crossbows, or even thrown flame torches, and there are also shields. It is possible to equip any type of weapon in any weapon slot, giving the player the choice on what to equip and how to play. In addition to the attack buttons, there are also two skill slots which can house a large range of different skills and items, such as grenades, turrets, and powers. All of these have cooldowns, but offer extra DPS or utility throughout the run. In combat, you have the weapons and skills in addition to jumping and a dodge roll. If you take a shield as one of your weapons, this allows you to block, and with good timing, parry too. These moves generally allow you to avoid incoming damage whilst finding openings to deal damage, which is important as it only takes a few hits to weigh you down. Generally speaking, enemies have obvious telegraphs on their attacks that allow you to react to them and avoid damage, but things get tougher when there are multiple enemies on screen all trying to hit you at once, as the dodge roll has a length of vulnerability after the initial iframes and the shield only blocks in one direction. In addition to the regular enemies, elites also have a chance of appearing, and these elites hit harder, are faster, and generally have more dangerous attacks. For example, shooting more arrows if they're ranged, or having more range or extended combos if they're melee. Thankfully, these elites are normally fought alone, and provide rewards when defeated. There are a lot of small intricacies to the combat. There are elements such as electrical, freeze, and fire damage, and all of these interact with the environment in their own ways. There are oil weapons which will make the fire weapons do critical damage, and there are pools of water that can spread the electricity and frost damage, and more. Speaking of critical hits, there are weapons that will crit every third hit, or crit when an enemy is against a wall. Additionally, enemies are extremely susceptible to fall damage, and there are many ways to make them fall, as some weapons and skills have knockback, but you can also trick enemies into falling off the cliffs by using their own moves against them. These intricacies make the combat feel quite tactical, and it gives you a great sense of control in how to deal with each individual situation. There are mutators which you unlock upon beating a level that allow you to further customize the way that you play, such as a damage boost after drinking a potion or killing an enemy, or shortening the cooldown of grenades and other skills. There is a huge number of items in the game, and all of them start quite basic to allow you to get the hang of playing regularly before getting into the more complicated skills, weapons and mutators, which are all unlocked by finding blueprints throughout the runs. You'll then spend souls, which are accumulated during a run, to unlock these blueprints, enabling them to be dropped during future runs for more exciting gameplay. As the game is a roguelite, you're expected to die, and you'll likely find yourself playing the same areas multiple times before getting through the game. So the randomized generation of levels and the large amount of weapon and skill types available helps Dead Cells continue to feel fresh, even when running through these same areas over and over again. Thankfully, like in other Metroidvanias, as you play, you will also unlock extra movement abilities that allow you to experience new areas in the dungeons or unlock shortcuts that will allow you to get around faster. It gives a solid sense of progression and allows for you to take different exits that give you access to new areas. The level generation is quite decent, with each biome having its own unique feeling, and for the most part the generation reflects this with particular room shapes and corridor types only appearing in specific areas. With this in mind, the random generation does seem to repeat itself reasonably often, and you will see the same parts shared across many of your runs. The game allows you to play by exploring and methodically clearing every room of each floor before proceeding, giving you the freedom to ensure that you have good gear and collect a lot of power-ups, which give you the ability to increase your health and increase the damage of a specific style of weapon. You can also choose to rush through the game, as there are time-sensitive doors that will lock if you take too long to get to them, and inside these rooms are usually a good amount of money, a few power-ups and a weapon or two. This allows you to speed through and keep a relative power level. But I personally found this playstyle to be more risky, as I would end up with less power-ups and tended to be underleveled compared to playing more thoroughly. After a few levels, you will come up against a specific boss. These bosses are not random like in many other roguelites, and as such, can be learned quite quickly. The bosses do make for interesting and difficult fights, even if you're quite familiar with them, as they can be difficult to overcome due to the level of your equipment and power-ups. Once you eventually have an amazing run and beat the game, you will unlock a new difficulty, and if you're able to beat the game again on this difficulty, can unlock yet another higher difficulty, and so on until you've beaten the hardest. This was too difficult for me, so I'm not sure what secrets these harder difficulties have to offer, but for extremely skilled or patient gamers, there is definitely a lot of playtime in store for someone who wants to conquer these challenges. Overall, Dead Cells is a solid 2D roguelite with lots of content and even more equipment to unlock that adds fresh approaches to each individual attempt and multiple difficulties to overcome for those particularly gifted players. It can get repetitive at times, but most players should be able to beat the game and experience most of what it has to offer before that wears on them too heavily, providing hours of fun before then. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have anything to say, let me know in the comments below.